Coming up this week on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast, myself and LaShawn Daniels take a look at Iowa football, the running game, a new NIL, talked about a little bit yesterday. We go deeper from a former player's perspective, and we wrap things up. Next week, it's Big Ten Media Days, all coming up on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast.
Our Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Trent Condon, LaShawn Daniels back with you. Another edition of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. We're presented today by BetOnline. LaShawn, I'm a big gambler. Now, big as it pertains to volume. I love betting. I've been doing it for a long time. In fact, I started way back my freshman year at Mayflower. That's the dorm I lived in back in 1998. Doing a little bit there. And for the last 24 years, I've been a gambler each and every day. Well, it's now legal in our state, which is a great thing, and great opportunities out there, including BetOnline. LaShawn, have you dipped your toe in? You're in Illinois. You can gamble over there. Have you dipped your toe into the sports wagering world yet?
No. The most I have in that sports wagering world is just fantasy football. Nah, my friends are definitely into it though, but I just have not gotten into it. It's just something about losing money. I'm just
Well, that's why you get good at it and you don't lose money. At least that's the theory behind it. Right. I'm a small wager, though, and I'm the same kind of way. Now, when I didn't have much money and I really was scary, I probably bet a little bit more than I should have. But anymore, I bet every single day. I bet baseball. I bet a ton of football, basketball. Doesn't matter the sport. I've been known to dabble in a little golf wagering. It doesn't matter. There's always something every single day for me to fire at. But I play $10 a game. I just play it that way and make it a little easier. And if I go through a losing streak, look, it's not going to cost me a house payment. My mortgage is not going to be in trouble, anything like that. So that's the way that I do it, but a lot of different ways to get involved. And you can go betonline.com and find out more information about our partner here with the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Well, I want to talk to you a little bit today. Yesterday, I hit it just a little bit, LaShawn, and that was the new NIL Collective. There was a press conference earlier talking about that this week, talking about the collective with Iowa Swarm and iowaswarm.com. I thought it was very interesting that all three coaches that are going to be involved with this is for football, men's and women's basketball, the head coaches were there. So the backing was there for this. When you first heard about NIL and became part of the sports landscape here in college athletics, where it was a year ago compared to where we're kind of seeing a trend today, just your overview of NIL.
Honestly, I mean, it's definitely long overdue. Like, if we're being completely honest, yeah, there's probably needs to be some type of rules and some type of regulations kind of around it. But I'd much rather have it like this, where these guys have the opportunities to, make money off their own name, right? So that honestly, I'm a huge fan of it, because I mean, there's a lot of these kids that come from all different types of backgrounds, and not being able to honestly make money while you're in school is probably not the most ideal situation for a lot of players. So I think it's an awesome opportunity that the players now have that opportunity to do so.
Yeah, it's something that has been a long time coming. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And the anticipation of what it was going to be compared to what it's really morphed into. And we see in places like Texas A&M, Texas, every offensive lineman, as they commit, getting $50,000 right away and getting that kind of check. Iowa, I don't think there's ever going to compete with that ridiculous level of things, Lamborghinis for recruits and the quarterbacks, things like that. That's not going to be the Iowa way, and certainly not the way that Kirk and company want to run the program and the way it works out. This is going to be a little bit different. There's going to be an opportunity, first of all, for every scholarship athlete that's going to get a check from this each and every month, which it was just great. More money in the pocket for these student athletes. But then also the component for the guys that are the stars that are going to have more opportunities that are going to be available to them, working with local businesses. So not just the charitable arm of it, but also the financial arm with the business community here. Looking through this and hearing a little bit more and learning more about what Iowa Swarm is, I think it makes a whole lot of sense, and doing it, I guess, the right way, if you will. Not a surprise, though, coming from the University of Iowa, trying to do it, win, graduate, do it right, or the mantra from Barta. You can see at least what they're trying to do here, and it seems like they are doing it the right way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Because obviously you're going to have your superstar athletes, right, on campus, who are obviously going to have the opportunity to make a lot more money than, maybe guys who are towards the bottom of your roster. I mean, that's just reality. That's just how it is. So creating something that honestly gives all the athletes kind of some equal opportunity, I think is really awesome moving forward. So guys just don't feel left out in a sense.
If you were able to, I don't know, get a check for an extra $1,000, $1,200, something like that, not life-changing money, but anything. But I mean, I think back, and that was a long time ago, a lot longer back than when you were in college. But thinking back of that, even for me, if it was an extra $500 a month, just what that could have meant for you, and just going through things, trying to get things figured out, boy, that would have been huge. It's got to be great for these guys now, even if it isn't that huge amount, just knowing, hey, you want to go out and you want to get dinner, take your girlfriend out, do something like that, or go out and have a couple of beers. And you know what? I don't have to go and get the cheap pitchers. I can get actually a really good beer. Those kind of things, those simple little things that just become so much easier just with, an extra $1,000 a month in these guys' check. It's got to be a great thing for them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because when you think about a lot of times, like for scholarship guys, I mean, your stipend or whatever monthly basically just goes to, your rent, utilities, and then, whatever extra food that you can get. So, having, those extra few dollars would have definitely come in handy, right? If you want to go out, have a little fun, or, even just go out and get some new clothes, right? Instead of wearing, Iowa branded stuff all the time, right? So that stuff that money is definitely going to be very helpful for a bunch of these guys, and I'm happy to see them starting to implement something to, I guess, try to compete in this NIL landscape, because obviously it's going to be tough, right? As being in Iowa and not having, the amount of crazy NIL deals and stories that you hear, that come out from some of these other schools.
Well, it's going to be a good thing. Certainly, iowaswarm.com is where you can go for more information on that. A lot of different tiers. The baseline, the lowest level is $200 a year. So an ability to go out there, know that you're helping these guys out. And that's the other thing. I write my check for my tickets, or I donate to the I Club, and you wonder ultimately, where's that money going to? Is it to pay a salary? Is it to help somebody else out? Is it just going into the coffers of a bartering company? You don't exactly know where this money is going. With this, it's going to the student athlete. And I think that's going to make it a lot more palpable for a lot of these people that want to donate. And the other part, though, that I do wonder is for people like me. You're not writing big checks by any means, but you're writing a check to the university each and every year. How much more difficult it is going to be for the university and the athletic department to get those checks and get those people that are willing to donate a couple $100, even the people that write a check for a couple $1,000s a year. Well, suddenly if that money is going to, a collective like Iowa Swarm, if that's suddenly how different that's going to be for the athletic department to try to get money. The good news is, they got $100 million a year coming in TV money. That's going to go a long way.
Yeah, I was about to say, I mean, it's definitely going to be, there's definitely going to be a lot of changes and a lot of, adaptations that the athletic department is going to have to make. But I mean, I think, the university is going to pretty much have that covered. And obviously, when you got these $100 million TV deals, I don't think money is going to be too big of an issue.
Yeah, they're going to be all right. No doubt about it. Well, we're going to continue our conversation here. We're going to get into some Iowa football today. Want to go deeper into the run game with you, LaShawn. Take a look at that zone blocking scheme. Maybe some changes that we've seen lately. It is not all zone blocking all the time. We saw that a year ago. Some more straight up blocking. What it's like to run behind the line, and your thoughts on the new guys that are going to be taking over. We'll do that as we continue on here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Trent Condon, LaShawn Daniels with you as we continue in a moment on the podcast. Mentioned gambling earlier today, betonline.net, the fastest and easiest way to get in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews, news of every league, including MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, even golf. I love that golf. I got a couple of guys going this weekend into the 3M Championship up in Minneapolis. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts, they have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Well, LaShawn, as we talked about here, the collective and what's happening, we morph into our conversation about the Iowa running game. And this Iowa running game, certainly this season, it's going to look different. I don't think there's any doubt about that. It's going to be a different look for the running backs, a new kind of running back behind the offensive line. Starting with Tyler Goodson. Tyler, one of the more dynamic playmakers that we've seen for the Hawkeyes in recent history, but behind an offensive line that dealt with injuries a year ago, outside of Linderbaum, the other positions, both guard and offensive tackle, they had their struggles. The running game this year, though you don't have an All-American in Linderbaum, I think the offensive line has a chance to be a lot better this season. Zone blocking. You need 5 guys working together. Just take us a little bit deeper there. And when you looked at the guys blocking in front of you, just the importance of having that group together and the ability to practice together week in and week out.
Yeah. Zone blocking scheme is definitely an interesting scheme. And you usually got to have some pretty mobile and pretty good offensive linemen to be able to run it, right? So you know that all 5 of those guys really have to be working together in unison for you to create the type of offense and create the positive plays that you're looking for, right? And no matter how good both Tylers were last year, right? Two players out of that really 7 guys, right? You got 5 non-linemen, a tight end, and then a running back. If all those guys aren't really working together, no matter how good a couple guys are, it's not going to make a difference, right? Because everyone has to be working in sync, right? There's double teams that require guys to block and get up to the second level, right, to make it easier for the running back to make reads. And then in zone blocking schemes, when there's pressure, early on in the play, it really makes it very, very difficult for you to have success as a run game, because zone blocks take a little bit of time to develop, right? It's not like a gap scheme where things are hitting like almost immediately. Zone schemes take a little bit of time, especially when you're trying to run stretch or outside zone type plays, which is really since Coach Ferentz has been in Iowa, really kind of been their bread and butter when it comes to the run game. So fast forward to this season, it's going to be interesting how the run game looks, because I feel like even though we lose Tyler on the offensive line, I feel like bringing a lot of guys back that really were just starting to get their feet wet playing football last year at this level is really going to make a huge difference in their development this year, right? I mean, they got a lot of reps last year. A lot of guys got a lot of playing time, so it should look much different. They should be much more comfortable out there and being able to play off of each other. And then in the backfield, I feel like Tyler was a dynamic running back, right? Could pretty much hit a home run from anywhere on the football field. But at times I felt like, his running style didn't complement the offensive line, as much as, maybe the younger guys might have, right? Because, I mean, the guys that are really going to be taking the reins this year are a lot, more type of downhill, type running backs that it's just like stick their foot in the ground and try to get, 4 yards every single pop, right? These guys aren't necessarily looking for the home run like Tyler was able to do last year. So I feel like this year there should be a little bit more complementary play when it comes to the zone blocking scheme and the guys that we have in for this football year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And that's how I see it. And that's why I think this running game is going to be better. And, the Iowa offense is never going to be known as a dynamic offense. It's not going to be considered, a top flight offense. It's complementary football. And Kirk talks about that a lot. And Brian Ferentz has talked about that, playing complementary football and also making it easier on your defense and not having them have to be out there on the field because you're going quick 3 and outs and those type of things. But for Iowa, a year ago, how many times they were looking at a 2nd and 12 compared to even a 2nd and 8, where Tyler be out there, he's looking to make that cutback in the big play, and he gets hit for a 2-yard loss. You played in this offense, you know what it is. Just the difference between a 2nd and 2nd and 12, where if I was 2nd and 12, it feels like this drive's over. You're not coming back from it.
Yeah. A lot of times, especially when the offense is struggling, like when it comes to the pass game, it's like you get 2nd and 12, you're behind the chains. It's like, well, might as well just try to get what we can to get the punt team in a better position, right? I mean, because I felt like we kind of had this similar thing back in 2016, right? I mean, there was a lot of times mean, we had guys that were out in the receiver position. We had to find guys that step up. CJ was really, really banged up. And so we couldn't really pass the ball quite as well as we would have liked to. So it was like anytime that, it was a no gain or negative yards play on first or second down, it just felt like, man, it's like this drive is practically over. And we saw a lot of that last year, even though that they still won 10 football games, right? Imagine how much different the football season would have been, right? If some of those plays that went for negative -2 yards went for, +2 or +3, right? I mean, it would make a huge, huge difference, and it would make it a lot easier on the offensive line as well as on the quarterback. So that's something I'm really going to be looking forward to this year, how much more improvement we can have in the run game, especially in the early downs. And obviously with Brian Ferentz looking to mix it up and play calling, right, not trying to be as predictable this year, I think is going to be something that will help the offense and, prevent them from fully being, towards the bottom of the conference on offense.
So we saw Gavin Williams along with LaShawn Williams last year in the bowl game against Kentucky. Both guys certainly had their moments. And also intrigued by the new running backs coming in. Caleb Johnson, just a big behemoth, the guy from Ohio. I'm sure you saw that one and had your ears perk up a little bit when you're hearing about him. And then Jazz Patterson from down in Florida, a smaller guy, that quickness that adds a complement to the running game here. 4 different guys I'm sure that they feel really comfortable with. Also the kid from Des Moines North and Hilson. So they got 5 guys back there, an opportunity. It sounds like everybody's healthy. Everybody's going to go for camp and just those different elements. How important is it in this scheme also to have running backs that do have different styles, that you do have maybe that long, quicker guy to go along with a behemoth, a big, strong running back? How important is that in the zone scheme and having those different styles?
Yeah, I honestly feel like it helps a lot. Because I mean, a lot of times, and especially like if you have backs that can play, really all 3 downs, it really, really adds, more difficulty to the defense, right? Because when you got guys that can interchangeably come in and out and can play all phases of the offensive football game, it allows you to have fresh bodies in there. It prevents the defense from really kind of teeing off on certain personnel and certain looks, because you never know what you're going to get. And having the ability to have different guys that can come in and can provide a different spark and different type of energy every single time that they're out there on the field, I feel like is huge for the offense, right? It just allows you to do a lot more different things. It forces the defense to think a little bit more and be on their heels, because they know that, hey, it doesn't really matter which back is in there. They're going to get a very, very similar result to the guys that's already been in there. And a lot of times, right, these guys can hit home runs from a lot of different places on the football field. So having guys that can complement each other, that can come in and, run an inside zone or run a power play, or can take a toss play or run a stretch or catch a screen and do all those different things, really, really adds a big, wrinkle to your offense, and prevents defenses from just teeing off, right? I mean, a lot of times last year it felt like, at times, they were just able to tee off just because, well, a lot of times we were like behind the chains, right? We weren't getting positive momentum offensively, but, looking at this year, if we can get, a lot of positive momentum in the run game, right? And, we can keep backs in and we can rotate backs in and still get very, very similar results. Because it felt like last year, it was really kind of this Tyler or bust, honestly, for most of the year, which I totally understand, right? I mean, he was a phenomenal running back. But I feel like being able to keep guys rotating in, keep those guys fresh and keep them healthy, I think is going to be huge for our offense and really keeping that train moving forward.
Great stuff there. As we look at the Iowa running game, we'll continue to break things down here leading into August camp, and of course get you ready for the opener against South Dakota State. Which NFL stars move the betting line the most? Starting this week, Locked On is giving you the 50 most valuable players in the NFL from the odds makers at BetOnline. Available starting earlier this week, the Locked On NFL Podcast Network is going to take you around the NFL. You can get that wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. So one final thing as we wrap things up here with LaShawn and myself, Trent Condon, and Big Ten Media Days starting next week. Jack Campbell going to be there. Kayvon Merriweather, Sam Laporta will be the three players that are in Indianapolis. It's going to be certainly a deeper look at this Iowa football team. But the biggest questions, I think, are about the conference as a whole. You know, I've been to these media days before. Kevin Warren's up there. Before it was Jim Delaney, and there might be a question or two that was interesting this year. Boy, there's so many questions from the TV contract and where they are. Obviously, the expansion with USC and UCLA, what the future of the Rose Bowl is going to be, the college football playoff. This year, more than any, this is the most excited I've been for a media day and being able to hear what the commissioner says. Because normally, for somebody like me, it's just going there, talking to the players, hearing from Kirk, those kind of things. I'm actually excited to hear from the commissioner this year.
Yeah, I'm very interested to hear, honestly, more what kind of went into their decision on, acquiring, USC and UCLA and really kind of what does that look like, right, for the future of Big Ten football, right? Is it something that's just going to end up just becoming, just a national conference, basically just making it like a huge mega conference or what? So it'll be very, very interesting to hear kind of what went into that decision. Who else are they possibly looking to add, right? Is that it? And so on and so forth. So yeah, I'm really, really curious because usually a lot of times I don't really ever listen to the commissioner too much. Yeah. Yep. I mean, I guess like before like the COVID season, kind of try to get an idea of like what was going to happen, but for the most part, yeah, never really pay attention. So it's going to be interesting to hear what he has to say because if I'm being completely honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the conference realignment. Obviously it would be nice to be in LA sometimes, right? And in November, right, when it's cold in Iowa, but right. For the most part, I mean, it's like I feel like it's just moving away from the traditional college football where you have kind of rivalries kind of built in, like with these conferences and things like that, and then you have the rivalries built into the bowl games, right? Like what does the future of the Rose Bowl look like now, like and things like that. So I'm going to be very, very interested in what he has to say.
I'm right there with you. That's going to be a fun part of it. There'll be plenty of questions. Laporta's going to be asked about the quarterback spot. Is it going to be Petrus? Is he going to be the guy? I think we all anticipate he's at least going to get the start here unless something crazy happens in August. And another part, I thought this was interesting on my radio show earlier today. We were talking with Tom Kakert. I know you know Tom from your playing days from Hawkeye Report. He was there at all the press conferences, and he was talking about Kayvon Merriweather was down with that trip of college players that went down to Selma, and hearing a little bit more about that, the social part of things and social justice, and it sounded like it was quite the event. So Kayvon is such a great guy just to listen to. He's an incredibly smart football player and just a great guy to give the overall perspective of where he's coming from. So that'll be a cool angle coming from Kayvon and what he was able to do. I think him and Logan Lee were the two players that went down for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be, anytime you can hear him talk, I think he does a phenomenal job, and obviously is a phenomenal leader for the football team. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes, throughout the Iowa football program, really over the past few years. And obviously, he's been very vocal, about several different things. And, I feel like he's done a fantastic job of being a leader. And then obviously taking part in these experiences and things like that is obviously, helping him grow even more. So, anytime you get an opportunity to hear him talk or read, things that he said, right, you always walk away like, man, like this is a really, really, really smart kid. No matter, what his future football future looks like, right, he's a guy that's definitely going to be all right. So definitely always give hats off to Kayvon for sure.
Yeah, and you played defensive back for Phil Parker. Probably going to have a pretty good chance of playing at the league. We've seen that year after year, year after year. Hey, LaShawn, a lot of fun here today. Appreciate you joining me once again. I'm going to be on vacation starting Tuesday next week, so if the schedule allows, hopefully you and I can get together on Monday, get one more out before I depart for my vacation, and then when I get back, it'll be August, and we'll be all systems go a couple of times a week. We'll be back at it here daily with the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it.
Well, I'm in Iowa City getting ready to call the state championship game in high school baseball here tonight with Johnston and Dowling on KXNO, the radio station I work for. But I got a chance here. Well, I got to get out of my hotel room in the next 16 minutes. But before that, going to head downtown and check out Iowa City. So I'll give you a full recap on Monday. How about that? And I'll let you know the changes downtown and how different it looks down there.
Yeah, definitely let me know. Let me know, because I'm going to have to make that trip, in a few weeks here. I'm going to have to. So
we'll be making that happen, no doubt. This is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. You can also know what your team is up against in the Big Ten with Locked On Big Ten. Every day, Nate Dickinson and local experts on Locked On take you across the Big Ten in 30 minutes. Make Locked On your second listen, Locked On Big Ten. That'll do it for today. Thanks so much for everybody out there. Thanks to you, LaShawn. We will do it again next week. Thanks for joining us here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast.